Hello, on this video I'm going to talk about shebang, indentation, and also continuation. Shebang is the very first line of a program. Now for this tutorial I'm using a Windows machine and also I'm using IDE. So whenever you run a Python on a Windows machine, the Python ignores the shebang line. And also if you're using the IDE, you also do not need the shebang line. Now, the shebang line is very important for Unix, Linux, Mac OS, and other Unix-like OS because it tells the OS what you use to run the program. Again, you do not need to use that on Windows, but I like to use on my programs because it feels for me it's just a good programming practice. So because of that, I'm going to add the shebang line on my code. So here's my code. I'm going to add the shebang line on the very first line. All right, the next topic is indentation. So for a Python code, the indentation is crazy important. If you ever code in any other language, you understand that indentation is not important. However, for Python, if you mess up with the indentation, you will have an error and you cannot run your program. So the standard indentation for Python is 4 spaces. So let's take a look here on the indentation of the code. Everything here that I wrote so far has 0 indentation. So if I put 1 indentation here before the print, and if I try to run this code, it will not let me run. It throws an error. So the indentation is important. And even if you put 4 indentations here, it will still not run. The reason is because for this line here, it expects to have 0 indentation because there is no block of code here. And the same thing is for everything else. You cannot put indentation or even a space where the program is not expecting you to have. There will be times when you're expected to put indentation, and if you don't, you're going to have an error as well. That's going to be for functions or for body of loops and another block of codes. I'm going to show you more of those as we progress through this tutorial. But for now, I just want you to understand that spaces and indentation is crazy important for Python. Not having it or having it on the wrong time will throw in an error and you cannot run your program. All right, and the last thing I want to talk about is continuation. And that is when you have a very long line of code and you have to split that in 2 lines. For that, you can use implicit or explicit. So let's say here, I have a very long line. I know this line is not long, but let's pretend that this line here is very long. And I want to split that in 2 lines. So there's 2 ways for me to do that. The implicit way is when I split that on purpose. So I'm going to split that with 2 strings and I'm going to put a plus sign here. And then once I put a plus sign, I can put a new line and then this will work just as fine. So I'm going to run this and it works. Now notice that over here, the IDE put some indentation for me here, but this indentation does not matter because it is a continuation of a line. So even if I have less indentation here or no indentation, it still runs. However, I really would like to recommend you to leave whatever space the IDE puts for you. So in this case, it puts more than 4 spaces. Leave like that. So this is the implicit way to split a line. And you can do on a print when you have mathematical calculation as well. So because of here on this line, you already have a multiplication sign. If I just press enter, and if I run the code, it runs just as fine. So the other way to break a line in 2 is to use the explicit continuation. So the explicit continuation, in this case here of the hello world, I'll just put a backward slash, and then after that I can put an enter, and the line now is split in two, and I can run the program and it runs just as fine. Now note that after the backward slash or the escape character, you cannot have anything else. This character that comes after the escape character is the new line character. So what's doing right here is ignoring the new line character. So if you put a space right here, then it will ignore the space instead of ignoring the next line character. And if I try to run here, it gives me an error. So to do a explicit continuation, there should not have anything after the escape character. Now, if you try to do something that on your own, and if you try to put spaces right here, and then if you put the new line, the ideally we remove the spaces right here, and it will ignore only the new line. So in this case it works, and that's because ideally automatically remove the empty spaces. Again, if I put it right here, then it will have an error. And if you want to do a explicit continuation right here, it's going to be the same thing. Just put escape character, a new line, run the program, and it works just as fine. Alright, so that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. This is easy and you can do it.